welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 6 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme is more wrestling than ever, more wrestling than ever. If you followed Season 5, there is quite a bit more in the randomizer for Season 6. That's led to some really off-the-wall stuff. It's led to some really cool stuff. It's also led to some not off-the-wall stuff in terms of the promotion. The randomizer pulled a WCW show this week. I was excited. When it pulled a WCW pay-per-view, I got even more excited. When I saw it wasn't from the year 2000, I got even more excited. However, I looked closer and it said WCW Fall Brawl 1995, and I got less excited. But then I thought it will make for a good podcast, which it always does. And yes, Fall Brawl 1995 from September 17th. It was the date. Asheville, North Carolina, Asheville Civic Center. Oh boy, what a show we have to talk about.
We took all that wrestling content that the internet has, private collections of wrestling content. We threw it all into the randomizer.
60,000 hours of professional wrestling in the randomizer.
That's what we throw into the randomizer. We fire it up. It can pick anything from any territory at any time for us to watch. And this is what it chose. It chose WCW Fall Brawl 95. We have not reviewed a Fall Brawl pay-per-view. We have reviewed other WCW pay-per-views, plenty of Nitros, some Thunders. We've had a lot of WCW.
Several World War IIIs, I believe, but no Fall Brawls.
Yes, this is our first review of Fall Brawl, and I was excited because we get a War Games, and I love me a good War Games match.
Well, think about the other, I don't know if we've done any others, but the other War Games that we've reviewed, I remember for sure. Was it the free feed, or I think it was the bonus feed? It's Wrestle War 92. If I would have been thinking, I could have worn my Wrestle War 92 War Game shirt. However, I feel like that would be blasphemy to, in any way, shape, or form, compare my favorite American professional wrestling match of all time, War Games 1992, to what we got in the main event of Fall Brawl 95.
1992 personally was also the year that I stopped watching professional wrestling. I had watched pretty religiously from 1987 until 1992. I ceased watching pro wrestling after WrestleMania 8, did not watch anything in 1992, and then proceeded to come back. I was convinced to come back and give wrestling a try in 1996. And, of course, it hooked me back. WrestleMania 12 with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, the NWO, that WCW Nitro, all hooked me back in. I was back like I never left. But this falls into that dark period for me where I've seen some things. I've done some catch up and watched the things that are important in the years 92 to 96 that I missed. And I've caught up on a lot of things. Nowhere was this ever recommended to me to catch up on or watch this show. Never was it on my list of things to do. And so the randomizer choosing this, randomly selecting it for us to watch, I was looking forward to it because I was going to get a War Games match. It's a show I hadn't seen. And there's a lot of talented folks on this show. And before we get into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of where we were in 1995 in WCW at this point?
For my money, I know some people will say like Russo era was obviously it was the worst, but for my money, this was the strangest period of time in WCW because it's post Hogan arrival, pre NWO beginning. You've got those 2 years or so of red and yellow Hulk Hogan doing the Hulkamania thing. and it just almost immediately ceased feeling like WCW. I remember being at Spring Stampede '94, great show, one of the best WCW pay-per-views ever, main evented by the last real high-profile Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat match for the world title. I remember sitting there and thinking, this is it. This is the end of WCW, the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, all the stuff I enjoyed, because we already knew by that point Hogan was coming in. He was going to appear at the Clash, then he was going to be at Bash at the Beach. This was a period of time where it was all of Hulk Hogan's worst mid-90s pro wrestling impulses just being mainlined into the promotion. I had not taken any time off of being a fan. Like 92 WCW into 93, particularly 92 is some of my favorite period of time of wrestling with the Dangerous Alliance, that whole era. But man, 94, when Hogan comes in, that horrible Starrcade in 94 through to this period of time, it is just rough. I was actually starting to order at least the WWF In Your House pay-per-views, which are cheaper than a regular pay-per-view, just trying to sample something else because WCW was so frustrating. It did not feel like WCW. I actually was at, Jeremy, the Nitro just a couple weeks after this show at one of the first Nitros, first like 6 weeks of Nitro, at Allstate Arena, I guess Rosemont Horizon as it was known. I believe I was fifth row, ringside. Directly next to me was a young Justin Roberts who got ushered backstage to meet the wrestlers, and I was jealous of this man for that. But yes, I was there during this weird time period. But yeah, we'll get into it. Not my favorite time period of WCW. The guys you liked and thought were going to carry the company forward were de-emphasized or completely gone, and it was filled with Hulk Hogan's best friends.
We are 2 weeks into the Monday Night War, which you mentioned. We get an opening video package telling us about some of the matches we're going to see, the main matches on this card. Ric Flair is going to take on Arn Anderson, and then they recap the Dungeon of Doom versus the Hulkamaniacs War Games match.
What a weird juxtaposition. It really is the story of this show, how one of the two main events feels so WCW, back to the Jim Crockett Promotions era with Flair and Arn Anderson finally wrestling each other in a singles match. The build was really intriguing, great promos back and forth leading to it. And then the main event, which is Hulk Hogan's Hulkamaniacs against the Dungeon of Doom in the War Games, which could not have felt less like WCW.
You mentioned we're in Asheville, North Carolina. It's the Asheville Civic Center before it's a sold-out crowd. 6,600 people, 5,100 of which are paid. The gate is $72,000. This Fall Brawl show did a .48 buy rate, which is about 113,000 buys, generating $1.21 million in 1995 dollars.
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine that this crowd was mostly, it was two things that brought this sold out crowd. It was seeing Ric Flair against Arn Anderson in a singles match, such a rare thing, been built up so well, and then seeing a War Games. Like, this is still close enough to the glory days of what War Games was like that I'm sure people thought they were going to see something like
less
what
than
War
10
Games
years
was.
From the original. It's less than 10 years from the original.
Less than 10 years from the original and 3 years from an incredible War Games match that I'm sure was still fresh in people's minds as fans of WCW.
Yeah, that .48 buy rate, it would be by far the lowest buy rate of any pay-per-view Hogan has ever appeared on.
Wow.
And the lowest of the year for WCW.
Wow.
Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan are on commentary. We're told that the Giant destroyed Hulk Hogan's motorcycle with a monster truck.
This is one of those things I had completely blocked out of my mind, and the second they said it, I vividly remember the scene. It was daytime. Hogan was out in front of the arena, and this bike had been given to him by the fans.
The fans somehow gifted a bike.
The Hogan needed bike welfare, I guess. And then, yeah, Giant runs over the bike with his monster truck. This all led to the monster truck match and the wrestling match at Cobo Hall the following month for Halloween Havoc.
We go to our opening contest. Flying Brian Pillman versus Johnny B. Bad. Michael Buffer is the ring announcer for the opening match, which is always so weird to me.
It's very weird. You remember, like I think of him as being the main event ring announcer for the big shows back then, but the fact that they had him from opening match to final match here, Flying Brian, Johnny B. Bad, Pillman comes out to some very generic music. And by the way, I watched, obviously this show is available on Peacock /WWE Network / wherever that lies. I found a original version of it on Daily Motion. Flying Brian's music was so generic. Like, I think of his music when he was Flying Brian Pillman in the Bengals tights. I remember that. I think of the Hollywood Blondes music. That is iconic WCW entrance music. This was just very generic. Johnny B. Bad comes out to his Slam Jam track. And there's a woman in the crowd with a sign that says, "Marry me, Johnny B. Bad," as Johnny B. Bad comes out with both his Bad Blaster, which blows confetti out, and a green Frisbee.
The winner of this match will get a U.S. title match against Sting. Remind me to come back to that after this match.
Because I have no recollection of that match taking place, and it feels like either guy winning this match against Sting would be such an oddball match for 1995 that I would remember it. I also was wondering if a 12 or 13-year-old Tony Khan was secretly booking this show, because Michael Buffer announces this as a United States Championship eliminator match.
Yeah, this is like it starts as like a babyface match.
Yes, it's a babyface match, but in the weeks leading up to this, on Saturday night, non-main event, tempers had flared, and they had flared more from the Pillman side than the Johnny B. Bad side. And I was immediately amused hearing that, because this scene, this whole thing had played out multiple times to this point in Brian Pillman's career in heel turns. I think back to the Brian Pillman, Brad Armstrong friendship / feud that spilled over to their match at Clash of the Champions some 3 years prior.
We saw that on a Worldwide, I believe.
Yeah, Worldwide, and leading into a Clash, one of the first couple seasons that we did of this podcast. And so here it was with Pillman again. He's fresh off being a Hollywood Blonde, getting turned on, and then here he's kind of, is he heelish? Is he not?
Yeah, so we get Pillman is he's the first one to throw a punch in the match, and he starts being the subtle heel in the match. He's
yelling, "Who's a bad man now?" at the crowd. It's amazing, because Pillman, the first 5 minutes of this is just straight up good technical wrestling, better than you'd expect for 1995. Both guys are very capable. But Pillman's ability to go from just happy babyface Brian Pillman to, in a snap of a finger, be that smarmy heel Pillman is tremendous.
Yeah, this match started off incredibly slow. And it was this weird pace. I'm like, man, this is really slow. Are they not allowed to do stuff? I was like, are they just? I felt like they were holding back, and they were.
Did Hogan put the clamps down on him?
That's what I literally was thinking. Were they told just go out and just keep it basic here? But they're having, like you mentioned, a fine match. This is fine. We get a 5 minutes remaining on the time call, and
so we're 15 minutes in at this point, and the action again, it's good, and it does pick up, but it's, for an opener, it's slower to build than you would expect. This is, you didn't have the Cruiserweight title yet in WCW, so you weren't getting those 18 to 20 minute Ultimo Dragon, Dean Malenko type of openers. You expected 12 to 13 minutes, a few minutes feeling out press, and then again, these are two really good wrestlers. They'd be going at it. That wasn't the case, and I think it was, again, because they were trying to build this as a friendly competition between two baby faces, trying to see who will win to go on and wrestle either of them, their friend Sting, later next week.
all of a sudden, the switch kind of flips on this match, and like Bad suplexes Pillman from the inside of the floor. He hits a Piscato. They're trading near falls. You've got Pillman hitting a Russian leg sweep into a submission until we're under a minute remaining. A bunch of near falls.
We get a counter Liger bomb by Johnny B. Bad, a tombstone off an Irish whip from Pillman. There's a ton of stuff leading into that last minute. Tony Schiavone says, these two men have pushed each other to the limit here in this gymnasium.
More near falls as the 20-minute time limit expires. And I was like, wow, that was an awesome final 5 minutes. Like the way the match was laid out, and it built really well to the last 5 minutes, and like the story that was being told as you recapped. And here, a time limit draw in the opener. Nick Patrick says that this match must continue. We must have a winner, which, why would you have not just made it a no time limit match if you must have had a winner? This wouldn't have been new news. And they announced the match as sudden death, which every match is sudden death unless it's 2 out of 3 falls. But okay, let's go with that. They restart the match, and we pick right back up where we left off, and they are going. Pillman's shoved off the top.
Well, he first, like, I love the desperation at the start. Pillman just hits like a double leg takedown into the corner, like we're shooting here, and he's full on heel. He's raking Johnny B. Bad's eyes against the ropes. Like any pretense of Brian Pillman being friends with Johnny B. Bad was thrown out the window 5 minutes ago and is not carrying over into this overtime period.
Pillman gets shoved off the top, and Johnny B. Bad hits his top rope sunset flip and gets a 2.999 before Pillman kicks out.
Great near fall for my least favorite move in professional wrestling. You basically miss a top rope somersault senton, and that is somehow supposed to allow you to pin your opponent.
A top rope Frankensteiner by Bad on Pillman. He kicks out at 2 again.
It's not the top rope Frankensteiner. It's the Bad Day. There's so many wacky names for Johnny B. Bad's moves. There's the Bad Mood, which is his slingshot somersault. There's the Bad Day, which is the top rope Frankensteiner. Obviously, there's the Tutti Frutti left hook.
Flying Brian hits a tornado DDT for a 2 count. Pillman goes to the top. Bad crotches him by falling back against the ropes. He then sends Pillman off the top into the guardrail outside, and Pillman hits this guardrail real hard. Inside, Bad tries that corkscrew splash. That's the Bad Mood or the Bad Day.
The Bad Mood. Come on, you gotta know Bad Mood means splash and Bad Day means Frankensteiner. It's so obvious.
Duh. And Pillman got the knees up though, so Pillman then hits a tope of his own, and both men are wiped outside. Back inside the ring, both men miss clotheslines. Then they hit cross bodies on each other, where they do that midair collision. Bad ends up on top.
This was a car crash collision. They hit into each other so hard. Like you said, Johnny B. Bad lands on top, and 1, 2, 3, Johnny B. Bad gets the win. I thought particularly the last 10 minutes of this, the 5 minutes of the last 5 minutes of the regulation and then the 5-minute overtime was awesome. I thought for what WCW was in 1995, this was both a very good and very ambitious match, particularly when you think about almost from exactly this point forward with what we see later on in this night. We pretty much never see Brian Pillman wrestle this style again. If the direction his career goes, then later on the injuries, the car crash, the whole thing. And you forget that Johnny B. Bad, while he wasn't like a great wrestler, he was fully capable during this time period of having really, really good opening matches. I remember matches that he had with DDP in 95 for the TV title that were really good. This was a really fun way to start the show, even if that opening 15 minutes was just odd given what ended up happening for the match and for the placement on the show.
29 minutes, 14 seconds, the time of this match. Dave Meltzer Wrestling Observer newsletter reports the length of this match was an office rib that backfired.
Oh my God.
The idea was to expose that both of these guys aren't as good of workers as people think.
What?
Since both had Steve Austin-sized contracts at the time, and Steve Austin was just about to be fired from the company. Dave Meltzer says that they want to expose these guys that they aren't as good of workers as people think, and they would fail trying to put together a 30-minute match. But it turned out to be the best match on this card.
Absolutely. Best match on the card, and one of the best opening matches on a WCW pay-per-view, particularly of this time period, and again, pre-cruiserweight division, that you're ever going to see. I mean, you look at the cage match ranking or rating 7.57 for this match on a show that was like a 5 out of 10. It was a 4-star match in the Observer newsletter in 1995. This would have been a 5-star match in 2025 with star inflation.
Yeah, so an office rib that backfired. I thought that was really funny. These guys can't go 30, and here they go.
It also tells you how messed up the situation was, that an office rib that backfires is how you describe a 4-star match. That it backfiring meant that it was great, which means that they were actively trying to construct a show that would have a terrible opener. That's how screwed up things were in WCW at that point, which is sad.
Yes, they fired Steve Austin. As you and I have talked about off air.
My favorite wrestler during this time period, and this isn't revisionist history, Stunning Steve Austin, from the time he came into WCW till the time he got fired, was my favorite wrestler in the world. And I'm reading
these observers from before this show, the show after. And yeah, he's talking about how he can't believe, Dave Meltzer can't believe in 1995 that this company would want to fire Steve Austin, because Stunning Steve Austin was earmarked as like a can't miss prospect and a future star with the company. But with Hogan coming in and the company changing, he had no place and was making too much money, and they were looking for places to cut, and he was one. These other two guys they wanted to make an example of because of their contracts as well. It's crazy to think about.
It's completely insane.
Mean Gene Okerlund is in the back with Ric Flair. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I forgot. I promised to tell everybody what happened with the Johnny B. Bad Sting match. And
everybody is me right now. I want to
know. So it was supposed to take place on Saturday night, on a WCW Saturday night, but on that Saturday night program, you were told that Johnny B. Bad, quote, no-showed his match with Sting. There's no explanation. There's no follow-up. It never happened. The match never happened. The fans were just told Johnny B. Bad was a no-show for the match.
But then was that his last time in WCW? Because it obviously went to WWF as Wildman Mark Miro, or did he? I can't imagine that. I mean, how do you explain away him being on TV like 2 weeks later if he just no-showed getting a U.S. title shot?
Yes, I'm not sure how close the timing was to him leaving.
I'm looking that up right now as we record
for
this.
The WWF, but you might. My guess is it just didn't make much sense, and they were okay with that happening.
I've got cage match up right here. 1995 WCW. What was the date?
This was supposed to happen on September 30th. WCW Saturday night.
So he is wrestling. He wrestles on Nitro the next night. He wrestles on Saturday night against Dusty Wolf on the 20th on a taping, and then Johnny B. Bad. He wins the TV title. He defeats DDP for the TV title on October 29th. He's the TV champion for the rest of the year, basically. He finishes out the year in WCW and then still is in WCW through, his last match in WCW is March 6th of 1996 when he loses the TV title to Lex Luger. on WCW Saturday Night.
Yeah, so it was just a bizarre. This was supposed to be for a U.S. title shot. The match happens, and then they just say like, "Oh, Johnny B. Bad didn't show up for the match," and then they just move on like it never happened.
And they throw him under the bus, but then he still is around for 6 more months. That is wow. You need a WCW deep cuts to explain that.
Now we go to the back with Mean Gene with Ric Flair. We're told about the past 15 years. Flair was bonded with Arn Anderson. He says, we were best friends through it all. And he tells Arn, tonight you will face greatness. I will talk about the video package later. As someone parachuting into this, I was... at this point, I wanted to know more about the falling out, right? Like, I was aware of all of the Horseman history. I wanted to know about the falling out, and we'll get to it when we get to the match itself. But I felt underwhelmed with the explanation. We always talk about parachuting into these things, and I didn't feel like I got caught up on what got us to this point. But
before the video package, when we get to the video package, they do a great job with that.
Yeah, now we go back to the ring where a man named Cobra comes out.
A man named Cobra, who you would know a few years later or a year later as NWO Sting. I'm pretty sure this is Jeff Farmer, correct?
Cobra comes out to us like Morse code is his theme song. Like just the noises, the beeps and bloops.
It's not Morse code music. It is just Morse code. And yes, this is Jeff Farmer, the future NWO Sting, Super J, whatever you want to call him. Here, he is Cobra. The gimmick is that he is a CIA Special Forces operative. If those two things go together, I'm not entirely certain. His opponent is Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman. The story of this match is that they were in different branches of the military, but were on the same mission, and there was something that happened between them that we don't know about, but it's led to them trying to get revenge on each other for years. And because this is 1995 WCW, which apparently had some remnants of early 90s WWF, where wrestlers had to have had other jobs, he's not a garbage man or a clown, but they're military men. So they're going to fight now. Pittman's music hits. He isn't here. An unnamed young man who is the future Prince Iakea comes out in military fatigues.
Cobra, I noticed that myself too, without writing. I wrote it down. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that this is Prince Iakea.
100%. Cobra is yelling at this man who is standing on the apron, telling him to tell Pittman to come out. The camera pulls back, and we see Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman descend from the ceiling like he is Sting 1 year early. He is all in military fatigues. He's got his face painted up. He lands outside of the ring, sneaks up somehow behind Cobra, chokes him from behind with the artillery belt. He gets the advantage. Cobra misses a top rope clothesline. Pittman just locks on his armbar, the code red, and just like that, this is over. Sorry, I'm sure you had a lot of notes, Jeremy, to talk about this match. This was completely nothing. Nothing.
Pittman wins quickly with a cross armbreaker submission is all my notes say. And before that, I'm pretty sure that was Prince Iakea. That's what my notes say.
It's just telling that like what we saw in the opener is what WCW should be. This is what the Hulk Hogan's and Eric Bischoffs of the world in 1995 wanted the WCW undercard to be.
We go to the back where we get a video of Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. He's raging in his locker room. He doesn't know if he's Mr. Wonderful anymore.
He had just lost to Randy Savage. This is a video from like a previous week. He had lost to Randy Savage. He's been on a run of bad luck, and so he's losing it, throwing a tantrum in a completely comedic or maybe unintentionally comedic way, freaking out, takes his boots off, getting ready to shower, and someone appears in the locker room.
Gary Spivey of the Psychic Connection Network. He's introduced to us in my favorite thing that television shows do when they speak in a way that no human being would speak. Like
You mean
someone
like
walks in the room.
the last 25 years of WWE?
Yes, exactly. When like if you walked in the room and I'm like, that's Adam Summers of Wrestling at Random podcast. Like,
Yes, exactly.
Nobody would ever say that.
He literally says, Gary Spivey of the Psychic Companions Network.
Gary Spivey?
Mr. Wonderful, they let me back here to see you.
Gary Spivey of the Psychic Companions Network? What are you doing here?
I got a vision. I knew you weren't okay. There's something I have to tell you.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. He says he sees great things for you. You have to be Mr. Wonderful. Tries to give him a pep talk.
You're burying the lead. I can't believe before you even said you did not do a fashion.
You want to go to the fashion corner? All right, I had the fashion corner at the end, but
it's the only thing that matters about this. Gary Spivey is a short, plump man wearing all white. He has a mustache, and he has, I guess you would call it a hairpiece. It's the worst curly white hairpiece that looks like like
a helmet.
It's like a helmet. It looks like the Howard Finkel microphone stand descended from the top of the building and dropped this hair helmet on top of this man's head. You must look up Gary Spivey just for this. He bears no resemblance to Dangerous Dan Spivey, by the way.
No, and I just assumed that this was some like, oh, this is just a wrestling manager maybe coming in for Mr. Wonderful. But no, I Googled this man. Gary Spivey is an American psychic. He's also a medium, a spiritual healer, an author known for his distinctive appearance, like wearing this ridiculous hair helmet. The description says, often featuring a white helmet-like wig and his engaging, down-to-earth personality. He was born in North Carolina, and Spivey claims to have exhibited psychic abilities since the age of 4 years old. So he's a legit psychic performer.
Legit
not a
psychic.
Wrestler.
I believe performer is the operative word there. But yes, I remember seeing Gary Spivey in Psychic Companions Network commercials on wrestling shows. Like I'm pretty sure I remember seeing commercials for that Psychic Network on Worldwide and seeing this man. And then here he is here. He's going to bring bigger houses, more cars, more money to Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. And Paul Orndorff, he's starting to believe. He kisses his own forearm and he says, I am Mr. Wonderful, over and over and over again. This finally ends. It felt like significantly longer than the 29 minutes and 43 seconds of the opening match on this show. We go back to Tony and Bobby at the desk, where they say that going forward, Paul Orndorff wants to just be known as Mr. Wonderful. So I guess this is like when Shane Douglas returned to WCW in 1999 and was just the franchise. He was not Shane Douglas anymore. This is Mr. Wonderful.
We go to the ring for the WCW Television Championship. The challenger, Diamond Dallas Page, comes out with his wife, his legit wife, Kimberly Page, here as the Diamond Doll. And and she accompanies him and one other guy. Who is this other guy? Max Muscle?
Max Muscle, just a big roided up gym guy that was a terrible wrestler. He's very similar to the guy. Who's the guy that was on those the International Wrestling from Montreal and then also like appeared on that World of Sport show?
Oh, yes.
He wrestled under two different names, Steve something and
yes. Yeah,
not
like
Steve
Strong
Power,
or
but
something.
Steve Strong. It was something like that. He's not the same guy, but it's basically the same guy here. We are in the Diamond Dallas Page won the lottery era of DDP.
I missed this storyline of Diamond Dallas Page's
completely absurd. Career. He won $13 million. So he is a millionaire. He will later gamble it all away. his opponent, the TV champion, a Hulkamaniac himself, who apparently is such a star in quotes that he doesn't even get into war games. Instead, he's wrestling third from the bottom against DDP, who was not a big star at this point in his career. This is for the television title. Like you said, it's fake Ultimate Warrior.
The Renegade with his manager, Jimmy Hart. DDP jumps the Renegade from behind before the bell, makes him look like a total geek, but then he headbutts him and just headbutts all around, which is a surprisingly big part of Renegade's offense. A bunch of clotheslines too. And Diamond Dallas Page, I'm watching this match. This guy went out there and said, I am going to do my damnedest. I felt like someone bet him $13 million. He couldn't make the Renegade look good, and he gave it his all to try to make this guy look good.
It's also really funny to see DDP here, like almost in the role of like Honky Tonk Man. The way he's, not that Honky Tonk Man is known for bumping a lot, but like just the way he's bumping around in a comedic fashion for Renegade, like you said, trying to make him look like $1 million, which is not an easy task with Renegade.
Max Muscle's on the apron. DDP rams into him. Renegade climbs to the top, but instead of attacking Diamond Dallas Page, he jumps to the floor to wipe out Max Muscle. As Renegade's getting back in the ring, Max holds on to Renegade's leg, and this allows Diamond Dallas Page to hit the Diamond Cutter and get the pin, and we have a new television champion, Diamond Dallas Page. Not sure if this was towards the end of the Renegade push era here, or if he
certainly
was still
closer.
around.
I mean, he would be around, but it was almost at that point like he was like a job guy, like a jobber plus on some early nitros. But yeah, I mean, the only other real story of this is, DDP sort of verbally abusing the Diamond Doll Kimberly. And like by this point, like she's a baby face, even though he's a heel and everybody's wanting her to leave him. She does not approve of the cheating that took place here. This will all lead to the DDP Johnny B. Bad TV title feud, where she ends up going with Johnny B. Bad and is with him for a while as part of that act, but we're not there just yet.
We then hear a song that is on the Mount Rushmore of theme songs for us, and it's Harlem Heat's music.
Yes.
As they come out with Sister Sherry. Sherry Martel is their manager. And this match is for the WCW Tag Team Championship. Harlem Heat are the challengers. The champions come out. The champions are Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck, the man we know as Jimmy Golden on this podcast. And they are managed by Colonel Robert Parker. And
this whole thing is so like, this is all a backdrop for the long running story of Colonel Robert Parker and Sister Sherry, as she was known with Harlem Heat. And are they going to get together? Just a completely absurd storyline that only worked. It was entertaining because of how great Sherry and Colonel Rob Parker are as characters. But it is just, the match itself is so strange because it's heel versus heel. Obviously, you're Bunkhouse Buck and Dick Slater, tag team champions. They're heels. Harlem Heat are heels at this point. So the crowd does not know what to make of a lot of the early part of this match until they just decide, like often happened, that Booker T is so great that we are going to cheer him specifically, even if he is not put in a babyface role. But we, I guess, before the show on Main Event, which is the pre-show leading into the pay-per-view, Colonel Robert Parker finally got up the nerve to give Sherry roses, and she was smitten. So we've got the two of them, obviously on opposite sides of the ring, opposite corners, but they're both more interested in / distracted by each other's presence on the other side of the ring than they are in managing their teams.
They got the heat on Booker for a long time. He eventually makes the hot tag to Stevie Ray. All four men are in, and they're all in one ring. This is a war game setup, so there's another ring there. So in the other ring, Sherry and Parker finally get together. They're making out. In the other ring where the action is happening, the Nasty Boys interfere. Harlem Heat ends up getting the pin, winning the tag team championship. Parker does not care that his team lost because he is in love.
This was a total, complete nothing match. Again, the crowd did not know what to make of it. It is so bizarre to see in late 1995 Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck, but particularly Dick Slater wearing championship gold. I think we spent a lot of time, rightfully so, talking about how great Booker T was in Harlem Heat and how obvious it was that he was going to be a single star. I feel like we don't spend enough time talking about how terrible Stevie Ray was. Like
Correct.
in the pantheon of like tag teams where you had the great wrestler and then the sort of like setup guy who was just power and like
The Marty Jannetty.
The Marty, well, even Marty Jannetty could do some spectacular stuff. I'm thinking more of like the Jim Neidhart. Like he was more Jim Neidhart than Jim Neidhart was, meaning he was such a secondary guy on this team. Like all he could do was just hold guys in place for Booker to hit them. Like he was just a total nothing as far as bringing anything to the table in the ring.
Afterward, we got a promo from Robert Parker, basically saying that he'll get another match. You guys will win your titles back, whatever. But the story is, quote, his heart is soaring like an eagle. So he
was so great here. Again, the material is so lame, particularly if you've seen Robert Fuller in other territories leading up to this, where he's so great and he's an over-the-top character, but the stories are serious, and so it works. Here, he's over the top. The story is absurd, but he somehow makes it work. He's sitting here. Bunkhouse Buck says how Colonel Robert Parker, he says, "You're lovesick. What's wrong with you?" Parker says, "I'm serious about that little girl. I'll get you another match." He says that he's at the bottom of the pit professionally, but, quote, "My heart is soaring like an eagle. I feel like I'm 20 years old." Here, this man looks like he's 68 years old. He is sweating profusely for no reason other than he is old and in love, and he says he feels like he is 20 years old. This is a character. I know he had a cup of coffee as Tennessee Lee in the WWF, but like this is a character that would have worked so well in like late 80s, early 90s WWF, but he was doing other stuff during that time period. But I love this man as a performer.
Gene is in the back with Arn Anderson. This is where we get the video recap. We see Vader beating Arn Anderson, and Flair was mad. And there was no way to patch things up somehow. But I'm watching this video.
The story is that Flair's obsessed with beating Hogan. He can't beat Hogan, and he's ruined his relationship with his family, with Arn, the whole deal. We see Arn and Arn's wife let cameras into their home. Arn explodes. Flair battles on a match where he's supposed to team with Arn, and that's where Arn has had enough. That's where you said there's no way to patch things up.
So this was a good promo here. He says he's going to give Flair all he's got, and at the end, Flair will respect him. Good Arn Anderson promo here.
Did you think the video recap was effective, or as someone who's parachuting in, did you not? Because like I thought it was, but I know I was watching at the time, so my brain is probably filling in things that they weren't actually showing.
No, because they didn't show like if there wasn't an actual like breakup event, right? Like where like this is what happened. Instead, it's a ton of like built up frustration. They did not do a good enough job showing the length of time of built up frustration to where it just felt like, hey, this thing went sideways in a match. They told you that Flair's losing his mind, but like they tell us they don't show us, and they just show us the Arn losing is very angry about the situation, but without like showing me a bunch of series of stuff of like, oh yeah, here's like a time period, like here's January, March, here we are now in September. This has been brewing all year, or this has been brewing over. You try to tell me that's been happening for, like I have no idea if this happened last week, if this happened, like, why are you guys have been friends for 15 years? Why, what has happened that, and it didn't seem monumental enough because there wasn't a breakup event. So it was over a long period of time of frustration. You have to convey that a little bit better as someone parachuting in, because I was waiting to see like, oh, is this building to what happened, and then it just like ended. I'm like, well, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't. So this must just be. I figured it out for myself, but that was a lot of stuff. That's a lot of the problem with WCW going in from the 90s into the 2000s was they assumed you would go ahead and figure out the rest without us having to tell you.
I think that, and also they were figuring it out on the fly a lot of times themselves. I think to your point, like the fact that like there wasn't the big breakup event like out in the ring or something, that made it a little bit harder story to tell. I think I also am probably grading it on a curve because most of the time WCW on pay-per-views did not even try to do something like this. They would just have the match. Tony Schiavone would have to do a good job of explaining to you what happened, but you wouldn't get a video feature. So like by the standards of WCW, both the video feature here and then what we get before War Games it's more than I expected, which is definitely damning with faint praise.
Yeah, and I do have in my notes calling out Tony Schiavone's performance in this match. We're about to get to the Arn Anderson Ric Flair match. Tony Schiavone in this match, he caught me up on everything I needed to know about their entire 15-year history, all of the stuff leading into this. He basically told me everything I needed to know that I didn't get out of the video package, and he did everything he could to make this feel important. This was Tony Schiavone's main event, and he wanted you to know that it should be your main event too.
I would say this is one of the best lead play-by-play performances of Tony Schiavone's career, particularly at this point where WCW is changing. Like, you can tell so easily what one thing on this show was Tony Schiavone very invested in. He did a fantastic job, and it was important too because yes, you have Bobby Heenan who had briefly managed each guy separately in the WWF, but Bobby Heenan was not around in WCW, and it's the preceding, whether you say the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, he wasn't there, so he did not experience and doesn't have the credibility to talk about the relationship between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, whereas Tony Schiavone was there holding the microphone from 1985 on for both men.
We see in the crowd Alex Wright, Eddie Guerrero, Marcus Bagwell. They're all so all the young guys are in the crowd watching this match because this is such a big deal.
Along with Colonel Rob Parker and Bunkhouse Buck as well. But yeah, you've got like a lot of the locker room is out again to drive home how important this is. Throughout the show, they say this is the match you never thought you'd get to see, but now you're getting to see it. Everything about the build up to this match, the presentation of this match, everything about it feels like it's a completely different company from almost everything else we're seeing on the rest of this show.
This match, I mentioned there's two things I really loved about it. One was Tony Schiavone's performance. The other was the story of the match. The story they were telling is that each knew the other's moves, but the other was one step ahead in recognizing that they knew the moves, right? So if you were a fan of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair over the course of their careers, you were rewarded for knowing the nuances because they played to all of those things. And so you got the nuances, you got the teases of this, the teases of that, and you were rewarded for being a fan that paid attention for that long.
Well, you also got the nuances of the two characters in that Ric Flair is the guy who's the perennial world champion, the leader. Arn Anderson is the second in command, and Flair throughout the match is basically treating Arn Anderson in that manner. Like the match starts and Flair thinks it's just, obviously they've had their issues going in, but he thinks it's just going to be like a friendly. They're just going to be doing moves, doing holds. And Arn goes a little high impact and Flair's like, what? Why are you doing that? What are we doing here? Like you can see it. It's the story that Bobby Heenan tells throughout the match as well, that like Ric Flair isn't taking Arn Anderson seriously as being on his level. And he didn't even ask the question. He's like, Ric Flair's an 11-time world champion, right? Why, over the course of 11 title reigns, did he never give his best friend a shot to win the title? Why did he never give him a title shot?
Grappling starting the match as we described. Flair with a chop is the first strike of the match. And then Flair actually hits a double axe off the top to the floor. Crazy.
A Randy Savage style double axe handle off the top. This isn't just like Flair doing the flip in the corner, running the apron, and then hitting the single axe off the top, which he only does when he's a babyface, never as a heel, but a Randy Savage double axe to the floor. I did not expect this.
Back inside, Arn Anderson fights back. Great punches. Backdrop gets a 2 count. Flair then hits a low blow, and it breaks down into a fight at this point. Arn's punching Flair on the outside. Flair hits a suplex on the outside to Arn Anderson. They take it back in the ring. Flair goes upside down in the corner. He's stuck in the tree of woe. Arn Anderson's choking him. He's choking him. And then he goes for his DDT, but Flair holds the ropes. And he does a Flair flop. Both men are down.
Yeah, Arn takes a back bump off the DDT attempt, which is great. Flair holds the ropes, like you said. They're both down. I loved, you mentioned the Tree of Woe. Like, we had all the teases of like the spots everyone expects. But then something like this was a total subversion of, you expect Flair to go up and over in the corner, and then Arn to catch him with like a clothesline while Flair is on the apron. Flair goes out to the floor. Instead, Flair goes up into the corner and gets stuck and gets himself in the Tree of Woe. And like you said, that's where Arn is choking and punching him. I thought this was just a super smart match. Like you said, like, if you don't know Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, you can watch it. And Tony Schiavone did a great job catching up. It's great wrestling, so you can hook into it, and it's great. But if you know the story of these two guys, it, like, to your point, it adds so much more. They're doing so much to reward you for being a longtime fan who's paid attention.
Flair to the top gets cut off. Arn Anderson throws him off. Arn comes off the middle rope, but Flair punches him and then puts him in the figure four. Arn turns over the figure four, reversing the hold. Flair with a chop block from behind. He goes for the figure four again, but Arn rolls him into a small package for a 2 count and a great near fall. People really thought that could have been the finish.
Great near fall and also great selling from Arn right before. You know, he gets out of the figure four and then he gets hit with the chop block to the side of the knee. You don't necessarily think of, like, because Arn Anderson wasn't a babyface for much of his career, you don't think of him as being a great seller. But here in this match, he's the de facto babyface, and he does a great job here as his leg is getting worked over.
Flying Brian on the apron. He punches Flair. Flair punches him back. And then Flying Brian with a jumping kick to the back of Flair's head. Flair stumbles into a DDT from Arn Anderson. Arn covers him, gets the 3 count. Arn Anderson wins the match. Awesome
Arn
match.
Anderson,
best match on the show by a mile.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that on Cage Match and on from the Wrestling Observer newsletter that this was a half star lower than the opener. This was 3.5 stars for Meltzer as opposed to the opener being 4 stars. Like, I thought for what they were trying to do, this was perfect. It hit all the right notes. This
probably the interference. I could only assume it's like just because you had to have interference in this match, but that
particularly if you're going to have Arn Anderson get the win here. This led into the main event of the Nitro that I went to. A couple of weeks after this was Arn Anderson against Ric Flair in a steel cage in Chicago.
That match sounds awesome. I'm jealous I did not get to see that.
That show, by the way, also had Sabu versus Mr. JL, Jerry Lynn, and a dark match after the show ended of Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko.
We get a Dungeon of Doom video hyping up the War Games. So I take back everything I said about the other video not being effective. This was offensive on many levels. Kevin Sullivan saying, Hogan, you and I cannot coexist on this planet. And I'm watching Kevin Sullivan here, and I'm like, how was this Kevin Sullivan gimmick so cool in like 80s Florida, and the lamest thing in 90s WCW. How is it?
Yeah. Well, it's the same guy doing what is on paper the same gimmick.
On paper, it's the
But
same thing.
In Florida in 1982, 1983, like he comes across as like a real person
Yes.
who is the leader of a satanic cult. And it is disturbing and scary. Yes, it's over the top and it's professional wrestling, but there's that vein of like reality that you can find in it. Particularly you think of the early 80s, the Satanic Panic, like it fit. Here in the mid 90s, it's bright, it's like colorful, it's cartoonish, it's everything that you don't want this type of gimmick to be if you want people to take it seriously. The other thing, like watching this video package, and then also watching the episode of WWF Action Zone that we reviewed a few weeks ago here on the podcast, you watch those two things, and it will answer any questions you had about how a product like ECW in the mid-90s was able to get so much bigger than it should have been by all rights when you think of the resources they had. It was because the product that both major promotions were putting out was so impossibly lame and cheesy and embarrassing to watch that there was an avenue for something that felt gritty and more real, even though it was wrestling was over the top, something to actually sink your teeth into, because man, it was not here with the Dungeon of Doom stuff. And this story, Hulk Hogan against the Dungeon of Doom, lasted so long through so many pay-per-views spanning multiple years.
That Bash at the Beach video, the video that we talked about on this podcast, it broke us when we talked about when Hogan like fell through a thing and like Curtis Iakea's being menacing and like
he's the master to the taskmaster.
It is in the top 5 of worst things. It's like Dup Cup level worst things I've seen in pro wrestling. Was that horrible promo? I hated
100%.
that video with all of my being. I hated it, so that I see it here and it just took me right back to that video package when I'm watching Kevin Sullivan. They're also explaining that Vader was supposed to be on this team and he went AWOL. He's not on the team, and so then Luger joined the team.
It was on the second episode of Nitro, which I believe was from Denver, where they announced that, like you said, Vader went AWOL, and that was a result of the actual real Vader-Paul Orndorff backstage fight that got Vader fired. We were going to have babyface Vader as part of the Hulkamaniacs team with Sting and the Macho Man Randy Savage along, obviously with Hulk Hogan. I can't even fathom what that would have looked like or felt like. Instead, Lex Luger, who had just jumped from the WWF.
Yeah, we're like 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks after the jump here.
Yeah, and he basically agreed to join Hulk Hogan's team if Hogan would guarantee he would get a title shot, a world title shot coming up. But Hogan didn't trust him. Savage didn't trust him. Sting did, because they were longtime friends. So that was sort of the tension, if you can call it that, coming into this War Games, which was the team I just mentioned, against Kevin Sullivan managing. So Kevin Sullivan is not in the main War Games match. It is Kamala. It is Shark, who was Earthquake, John Tenta. It is Meng. And it is the man who main evented the previous year's Starrcade, the former Brutus the Barber Beefcake, the future Booty Man. Now, the man who was the Butcher in 1994. Here he is. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Zodiac.
This group of men managed by Kevin Sullivan taking on, again, the Hulkamaniacs team of Hulk Hogan, Sting, the Macho Man, and Lex Luger, managed by Jimmy Hart. They run down the rules for the War Games match, and then they remind us you can win by surrender or submission only. And I immediately thought, well, so then Luger gets the win because him or Sting have to get the win because they're the only ones with submission holds, because Sting has the Scorpion and Luger has the torture rack. So that I'm thinking ahead to the finish. One of those guys is going to get the other one to submit. We'll see how it goes. If Hogan's team wins, then Hulk Hogan will get Kevin Sullivan one-on-one in the cage post-match. Shark and Sting start the match.
Which is hilarious because, again, like you think of War Games, and it's always like, both in kayfabe and in reality, the guy with the best cardio for each team starts. So you think of like Arn Anderson would always start War Games for the Horsemen. I think Steve Austin started War Games in 92. Sting, obviously, great pick here. They determined that the man with the best cardio, and God bless him, I was a fan of the guy, but the man with the best cardio on this team was John Tenta. Earthquake was going to be asked to go the full distance of this match.
Looking at this roster, they might not be wrong. He might be the best.
You can make an argument for Meng, but at this time period, I would say it's probably 50-50 between the two. Certainly not Kamala.
No, and definitely not Zodiac.
No.
Highlights here. Sting leaps over the top rope from one ring to the other, clotheslining the Shark. Sting hurts his back trying to body slam Shark, and we get a bear hug. Sting fights back by attacking the legs of Shark. He puts on the Scorpion Deathlock as the coin flip happens to find out who's going to have the man advantage.
We don't see the coin flip, which is extremely annoying. They talk up the coin flip the entire opening 5-minute period, but we don't see it. I did like, again, Sting is working so much harder than he has any right to be working, given the material he has to work with. Shark has him in the bear hug, and Sting is like he's trying to get out. He reaches up to the cage, the low ceiling of the cage. He's trying to use that to get out. I love John Tenta, but God, the Shark gimmick, the look, it is so low rent with the face paint, the poorly drawn Shark on his gear. It's embarrassing.
After the coin flip, the heels get the man advantage, and Zodiac is the next man in. Sting has no problems with Zodiac, and he goes to slap on the Scorpion. So, like, they were supposed to have a 2-on-1 advantage, but it's like 1-on-2 advantage Sting.
Yes, it's the most realistic part of this match, and the most satisfying part of this match is the complete ineffectiveness of Zodiac as he gets into the ring. I also love Bobby Heenan just never letting up on how much he as a character hated Hulk Hogan. He guarantees Hulk Hogan will wait until the end of the match and will come in last, and he is not wrong.
No. So Zodiac's in the Scorpion, and that allows Shark to get back to his feet and start the double teaming of Sting. They double team him until the Macho Man is next in the match. Savage and Zodiac have similar gear on, and it's driving me insane.
I'm glad
How did this happen?
It's very, and again, like, it's relatively lo-fi video here in 1995. So, like, unless you get so you think about it, the hard cam distance shooting through a tight chain link fence. So it's hard to even make out that Zodiac has face paint unless it's the Jackie Crockett camera inside of the cage. So for the hard camera shots, you could not tell the difference between Zodiac and Savage. They're both wearing black and white long tights.
It was driving me nuts. Somehow they pull Savage's leg underneath the cage.
Well, the cage is
failing already.
It's a little too high. It's not all the way down, like level with the bottom of the apron. I assume because they wanted to do these spots, but once they do this, it immediately takes away the feeling of, like, because the great thing of the War Games cage is the claustrophobia of it.
Yes.
It's a short cage. It's a low ceiling. Not only can you not get out on the sides, but you just feel like the literal and figurative weight of it above you. This immediately takes you out of that.
Kamala in next for the 3-on-2 advantage. Very punch kick offense from everyone at this point. Well, nobody's doing anything.
The heels aren't using the cage at all. You've got these cartoonish 80s Hulk Hogan opponent guys who just look so out of place in this gritty look of a War Games in WCW, and they don't use the cage. They just throw, to your point, weak punches and kicks. It's so weird.
Luger in next to even the sides. He runs wild. Double clotheslines to Shark and Kamala. He sends Zodiac into the cage. Thank God someone's using the cage. Luger sends him in there. Luger then accidentally clotheslines Savage. And so Luger and Savage start fighting each other. Sting's trying to separate them as Meng comes in. And Meng kills everybody. Thank God for Meng. He's awesome, as always.
He's the only guy on this heel team worth anything at all.
Yes.
Luger's yelling sell of these super kicks by Meng is hilarious. You know, there's the great like super cuts of Luger screaming when he throws punches, when he does anything, but for some reason the mics are really, really picking it up here. Other thing I just want to note, Savage, again, this match sucks. Savage is incredible in this match, though, just being completely feral. When he first gets in, he runs wild on everyone. The second Luger accidentally clotheslines him, Savage, it's like in the character, it's like the switch flips, and he's like, I knew it. I knew this guy couldn't be trusted. And within a nanosecond, he is on him, and he is just beating him down. He is great at being Randy Savage here.
Hogan comes in last, as described by Bobby Heenan, and the match beyond begins. Hogan throws powder in everybody's eyes.
Stepper packets for everyone. Bobby Heenan says, again, Heenan is so great. He says, what's that smell? It smells like napalm or gunpowder.
Hogan sends everyone into the cage. Hogan puts Zodiac in a camel clutch for the submission victory. This was so lame. There was no blood anywhere in this War Games.
Well, we're deep into the no blood in WCW. Like, you can't do it in Hogan matches in particular. Not only that, we had so like Hogan comes in and it's very short from the time he comes in to the time of submission. Short. But like we have like the thing that bothered me the most about this match, the wacky comedy spot. Hogan has Zodiac between the two rings, and he's like, his head is in between the top and bottom or top and middle rope, and he's punching him, and Zodiac bounces back off the ropes behind him, and he punches again, bounces back. They do this like 10 times in a War Games. So dumb.
No, the match beyond was so short. Like, the whole thing is to build to the violence that happens in the match beyond, and you have to either beat someone into surrendering or you have to make them submit, and you have to like neutralize everyone so that you can get a submission hold on. And the entire thing was just like, no, we just here just a the devastating Hulk Hogan camel clutch that you've never seen him win a single match with gets the win in a War Games match. It was completely insane. It was horrible.
It was horrible. It was clearly designed to show how like all the other guys in this War Games match, the other 7 guys, they're on one level. They're fighting each other. Yes, it's lame, but they're fighting each other. No one can really get an advantage. Then Hogan comes in and he just takes everyone out immediately. He puts on a lazy submission hold, and that's it. It's over. To your point about like the match beyond, think about from the moment at that point, it was 5-on-5, all 10 men at War Games, Wrestle War 92, Sting Squadron Dangerous Alliance. Think about the violence. And like that went on for a good, like, felt like a good 10 to 15 minutes. It like you felt it. The
They're
tension
taking
of
the
like
ring apart to get more weapons.
Yes, the desperation here. Just I use this word from time to time, but it fits here. This was the most perfunctory match beyond in a War Games you have ever seen.
Yeah, just such a like. I can't imagine that in this point in 1995 that there's people that wanted this Hogan at all. Like it.
No,
the
he was getting booed in a lot of
places
by this point.
Yeah, it's so tired. It's so just. Yeah, the whole thing was completely off-putting. Like I'm so like I felt like I didn't miss anything by not knowing that this War Games existed, and I watched it, and I still feel like nothing. This doesn't resonate. When you ask me about War Games matches, I'll never remember this one, and it's just so bad. The badness continues because Hogan now gets Sullivan for a post-match. Sullivan tries to run away, but Doug Dillinger is able to apprehend Sullivan and bring him into the ring.
Well, this whole thing is so bad because Dillinger stops WCW security director Doug Dillinger stops Kevin Sullivan from getting to the back, like he's almost to the entranceway, and then he's like frantically motioning for security to come. And after like 30 seconds, one dorky security guy comes up there, and they like have a calm conversation, and then like the camera cuts away because it's obvious this looks terrible. We go back to the cage. It comes back, and there's one other dorky security guy that helps Doug Dillinger escort Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan back to the ring. And at this point, Kevin Sullivan, like, he might as well be like a heel Jimmy Hart or Jim Cornette in terms of like he's just completely cowering, like he's never wrestled a match before in his life.
Nobody cared.
No.
This building is sold out. This is the end of the show. Nobody cared. I'm like, was Kevin Sullivan just this not over? Was Hogan? Were they just sick of him? Was it
all of it?
Can two things be true? Yeah.
The Dungeon of Doom was never over. Like, that's the crazy thing. They were the top heel group in this company for, it felt like, at least a year. The story going on with Hogan with multiple different guys going for, it was never over. It never worked. No one ever cared. It never got a huge reaction, but it was what Hogan wanted to do, and he had full creative control.
So Hogan's ramming him into the cage, and at this point, he hits the big boot, and the Giant makes his way down. The Giant, the future Big Show, Paul White, he gets in the ring. He leaps over the top rope, which is always impressive. Like, the guy is a hell of an athlete. The early Giant stuff is so impressive.
Top rope drop kicks, videos of him at the power plant doing that. It's nuts.
Yeah, the guy's just a hell of an athlete. Super impressive. Here he leaps over the top rope, starts choking Hogan down, and he hits that like head twist neck breaker, like Zeus did in No Holds Barred, and in his run in the WWF in '89.
Not only in No Holds Barred, but I believe earlier this year in 1995 as Z Gangsta in the Triple Tower of Doom match against Hogan and Savage at Uncensored. So they were recycling stuff already. And unless I'm wrong, that didn't come till 96. But either way, like...
No, I would have seen that in 96.
Well, then there you go. There you go. That was just, if Slamboree was usually like May, so that would have been like 4 months prior to this. This is pre-choke slam for the Giant. So this is, the neck twist was his finish. This is also where they wouldn't come right out and say it, but they would try to tell you without telling you that Paul White was Andre the Giant's son.
Yes. Hogan's team eventually comes back to make the save. They tend to Hogan as he's near death as the show goes off the air. Tune in to Nitro to find out more. Whoo, this show. It started so promising. If the show ended after Arn and Flair, I'd be talking about, hey, that wasn't that bad. And then here we are, a thumbs in the middle show, and here we are, the main event, dragging me down violently into a thumbs down show here.
I'm trying to think of a show, and I know there's like, I'm thinking about, like, it made me think of AEW, where there's like, they've never had a show anywhere near this bad, but there have been a few AEW pay-per-views where, like, by the end of the night, you're like, that wasn't that great of a show. And then you think back and there were like 2 incredible matches on the show, but some other stuff left you feeling cold. I don't know, though, that there's ever been a show that is widely regarded as being as terrible as the show was, that had 2 matches that were as high level as Brian Pillman and Johnny B. Bad in the opener and that awesome Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair match. It tells you how terrible everything else was on the show, how awful the main event was, and just how impossibly lame this period of WCW felt.
Yeah, I think we've been real clear as the show went on what our favorite things were in the show, what the worst things on this show were. So I don't think we need to recap it again.
No, I think they're evident.
But yeah, we've made a lot of references to other shows we've reviewed and the bonus content along the way. That bonus content can be found at patreon.com/wrestlingatRandom. Over there, we do a bonus episode of this show every single week. And at the time of this recording, there's 220 episodes available to you in the bonus feed. $5 unlocks the entire back catalog. 220 episodes all at once. And over there, we've got tons and tons of shows. A lot of shows that weren't picked at random, but were actually picked by patrons who subscribe at that tier. And so there's a lot of famous matches, a lot of matches that might be some of your favorites as you listen to this podcast. So definitely go check out the content that's available to you over at the Patreon and give it a subscription for $5. Give it a try. Check it out. And if you want to request a show for us to review, you can do that as well. You can jump right in at the $10 tier. Come on in, submit a request, and you can continue to stay at that tier every single month and submit requests every single month. Or you can bump yourself back down, continue to get all that great bonus content. Again, patreon.com/wrestlingatRandom. Or if you are listening in Apple Podcasts, you can just click the subscribe button right there. And every single one of those episodes that you can't listen to because it says bonus content, they all become unlocked for that $5. It'll unlock the entire back catalog right there in your Apple Podcast feed, so you can just enjoy it right there without having to create a Patreon account. So you can always hit that subscribe button there as well. And while you're hitting subscribe buttons, boy, do I need you to go over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search for Wrestling at Random Podcast. Over there, throw us a subscribe, like some of our videos, helps us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. And if you want to consume the podcast via the video form, you can do that over there as well. And you can see what shirts Adam has on, usually themed for the show that we're watching.
It's a classic total package Lex Luger t-shirt, a reproduction of his 1989 shirt.
So over there has the full video version of the podcast. And if Spotify is your player of choice for audio, not only do you have the audio there, but in the same where you have the audio, you're listening to it right now, if you open up the app, the video is also playing. There's video and audio available both in Spotify as well. So plenty of ways to consume the show. It helps us if you tell your wrestling fan friends about the show, because wrestling fans know other wrestling fans. So please continue to spread the word. That's how we continue to add more subscribers and more people to come to the show and help us keep the lights on and keep rolling over here in the free feed. And with that, I'm going to remind everyone before we wrap it up that the best way to interact with the show is via all of our social media channels. At Wrestle at Random. Anywhere where social media is, you can follow us there and interact with the show. We'd love to hear about your experience. Did you watch this show live? Did you love Hulk Hogan at this time? I want to hear from anybody. Tell us your thoughts on WCW and Fall Brawl. Do that via our social media at Wrestle at Random. And after all of that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Not going to say thank you, Randomizer, because it could have done better, but made for a fun show. And it didn't give us Fall Brawl 2000, so little victories, we'll take them.
And with that, I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.